feel that the terms in the gender identity ideation would be something that you would be able to comprehend. And some of them just sort of blew me up, were like, what, no, like they're too strong. One said to me that we're just learning about ourselves, and why would we need more things brought into our lives to cause more confusion? So I respected their opinion. I respect the LGBTQ organization, their ideology. I respect them totally. But I even agree with the email that was sent to all of the board members regarding one of, she is involved in a lesbian relationship. She told everything, but at the very end, her statement was, these students are too young for this right now. And some kids are not even prepared at the high school level to understand and comprehend what is happening. I mean, we know that the brain doesn't fully develop until, in some individuals, till they're in their early 20s. Why would we even consider presenting this? And so I felt like it should have been said, we're not discussing this, as we said at the first meeting, and that a lot of the people at the meeting, the January 12th meeting, took away with, that was not an option for discussion. We received a copy of that Unit 2 packet during the February 3rd meeting with very little opportunity to review, and then we were supposed to decide if we wanted it or not, and nobody came up with a consensus. And so I am here as a member I feel what was told to us at the very beginning should stand, and that we should respect the administration and the teachers' concerns, and they're not wanting it to be part of the curriculum.
Caitlin?
So I think it's a very complicated, I don't want to even use the word controversial, because I don't like that word, but it's a very complicated topic. And after the February meeting, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about this as a topic. I think it's extremely valid when a member of the community brings something up as a point. I think it's also really important to point out that there was no consensus, which means that there was also not a consensus against Unit 2. So there was truly no consensus. It was not an overwhelming majority did not want it, and there was not an overwhelming majority that did want it. That is the exact definition of a consensus, or no consensus. I spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking with various people regarding why would there be a recommendation from administration not to present Unit 2? Why would there be, what would be the downside of that for the students? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it is about the students. And while I do think it's extremely important to allow that unit personally, I also I struggle with the idea that because of a vocal community opposed to this, that ultimately the only people who are going to suffer are the kids who could most benefit from this. There were a couple of things said at the meeting that I think are just worth sort of food for thought. One is that one of the things mentioned was, well, not all of our students might struggle with gender identity or wondering if they are gay or lesbian or other or whatever. And so it's not important that we teach this, where that would be a terrible rationale for any of the other areas where we have a minority of students, such as special education. The minority of students are special education students. That does not represent the majority, despite putting resources, rightfully so, towards that. So, we don't get to sort of decide which marginalized group we are going to ignore and which ones we're going to acknowledge. I also think that it is really important to remember what public education is for, and it is to educate all children, regardless of background, and to give them a quality education for free. There are plenty of schools out there that are not, that don't have that as a mandate, where you can pick and choose what you're teaching. And that is a great option for kids who can go to those schools. But for a public school, for public education, it is to educate all students regardless of their background. I think the other thing that's very important to recognize is that this is not being pushed on students. Parents have the opportunity to opt their children out of part or the entirety of the human growth and development. That was my experience. The 1 year that I had it offered in school, I was homeschooled for the majority, and in 6th grade I went to Catholic school and we had sex ed, and my parents opted me out of it because at that time they believed that that was the right choice for our family. That is an option for any parent who feels uncomfortable with any part of this. I think those are the biggest thoughts that I had. The other one, that I did hear quite a few times, and I've heard it tonight, is also the idea of the Bible, biblical, and God. Public education is freedom of religion, which means that each individual student is allowed to practice their own personal religion without it being a state mandated thing, which includes not mandating Christianity on other students, despite any of our own personal beliefs on it. Our personal beliefs are incredibly valid and important and are dearly held to us, but they are in the context of public education, they are personal. And so those are the thoughts that I had coming out of that. After all of my sort of thinking on this and really struggling with the idea of whether a recommendation for or against this was the right option, I feel slightly torn on it because I do think ultimately there is a chance that the students that would most benefit from this will suffer the most. But at the same time, I don't think that fear is a good reason not to do something.
I have a question, because I heard from a lot of people after the first meeting that the second meeting was explicitly to discuss Section 2. And that it was discussed at the first meeting that Section 2 was going to be brought up and the materials would be made available for people to review before the next meeting. And I was under the impression from many people I talked to that the whole point of having a second meeting was to go over Section 2. Is this a misunderstanding?
My words were that this is a draft and a proposal, so I can't mandate, the administration can't mandate what is going to be said in the curriculum. But just to go back, I said this was a draft and a proposal, and that from the beginning I said that we would omit Section 2 as our proposal.
And then how did it get put back in? Because there was a group of people in the ad hoc committee that felt it was important.
Correct. So then we met for those 3 different meetings, and we had people spend hours on this, like going through all the different pieces and like, yes, the time period in between the 2 meetings, and there was lots of concerns about different pieces. And so we were able to record what those concerns were and put them into this document. When we got to that last meeting, during that time, no one hadn't come to our attention, to the admin's attention, or that anyone would propose for Section 2 to be, or Unit 2 or Lesson 2 to be included in the curriculum. And so then the way that the meeting ran was we went through, we did a attendance and said who exactly was there. I type everyone's name in, we do the counts for the ratios. And then I explained where the concerns were already and then allowed for time for anyone who was still there to ask about concerns that they had with anything in the proposal. And at that time, that's when it was asked, there's concerns that why are we omitting?
Okay, and then another question, have we used this curriculum before?
No.
Okay, so this is a new curriculum. Okay. First, before I say anything, I want to thank everybody who's involved in the ad hoc committee. That's brutal. And it's 2 days on an issue that you knew going into this. Everybody, no matter what side of the issue they went into, knew this was going to be tough. And they were going to be talking about a tough issue with members of their community. And as you can see, there is no consensus on this, which means that that ad hoc committee is split basically right down the middle on this, which means no matter what decision anyone comes to, a lot of people are going to be upset. And I want to make that very clear right now. I really appreciate everybody who came to this. Now, I have strong feelings on this issue. However, I think they're moot. This program was developed to comply with the law. There's been a lot of disinformation flying around. Like, I've seen a lot of people who thought grades 6, 7, and 8 meant ages 6, 7, and 8. I believe that email talking about it being too young. Somebody thought that was a 6-year-old that we were talking these to, not a 6th grader. I'm not sure, but that's the way I interpreted that. But there's been a lot of discussion and emails I've gotten all around sites saying, follow the law. Whatever we have to do, we have to follow the law of 118.019. The whole reason this curriculum exists is developing a curriculum that will follow the law to the letter is incredibly difficult. You need lawyers, you need content experts, you need all sorts of people who put this together. And this was put together by experts to comply with the law. However, part of the law specifically claims, where the heck is this? That an instructional program under this section shall use instructional methods and material that are consistent with 118.13, that do not discriminate against a pupil based on the pupil's race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or ethnic or cultural background, or against actively sexual pupils or students with disabilities. And before that, it says the purpose is to present information about avoiding stereotyping and bullying, including how to refrain from making inappropriate remarks. These things happen. Gay kids get bullied, they commit suicide. It's dangerous, they're our at most risk students. If you cut this material, you open the school up to a lawsuit, because any student can easily say you no longer have a curriculum that includes this material, you have discriminated against your LGBTQ students. And frankly, any parent that did that would probably win. So if we want to scrap this whole program, we can. But trying to blow holes and pick parts in the curriculum and say, we want this part, but not this part, but not this part, is a huge legal risk. Because that's taking a complicated legal document and punching holes in it. So regardless about how you, I'm talking, Jeanette. Now you accused me many times of being disrespectful.
I thought you were done.
I'm not.
Well, keep talking.
So furthermore, if we had a section on civil rights and it wasn't very good, fine. But if we had a history book that had a chapter on civil rights and we decided to rip that chapter out of the book, the message that sends to students that this isn't important, that we're just going to tear it out, is devastating. This is damaging to our potential students. Now, I think it's very important that we have exemptions, and we do. By law, in this law, any parent can exempt their kids. And the only argument I've heard that that's a problem is that a kid might feel bad if their parent pulled them from the material because they look like they didn't care or were mean or something. I'm not sure. But they'd be embarrassed by being pulled from the program. And I do get that. We have students who get pulled from other things for religious exemptions. We have students who can't celebrate birthday parties. That's hard for a student. But it's a wonderful thing that our school allows parents with religious beliefs to exempt their students based on the religious beliefs. And that's good. And it solves the problem here. However, our LGBTQ students do not have the option of an exemption from bullying. They do not have the option of an exemption from this thing. They're going to live their lives forever. Now, currently, 9% of the adult U.S. population.
You're addressing us. You're supposed to address the board. We can't respond to you. You quit addressing us and address the board members.
You do not have the floor.
Some of us agree, sir.
You don't have the floor.
Yeah, you don't have the right to
9%.
say anything.
You don't have the
Neither
floor.
do I.
You do not have the floor.
So don't aggress me.
You do not have the floor. 9% of the adult population in the United States currently identifies as LGBTQ. That's probably a huge underestimate, because people understandably are nervous coming out about this. If you look at the data, you'll see that if you go all the way back to the silent generation, it's less than 1% is willing to publicly identify as LGBTQ. If you go Gen Z, it's over 20%. Now, we can argue about why that is, and I think that's scientifically valid. But we can't if we don't know what we're talking about. It also suggests that somewhere between 9 and 20% of our students are LGBTQ. And if we're going to discriminate against 20% of our students, we're going to get the crap suit out of us. Now, I have more to say, but I'll hold that so people can respond.
Nicole, in your ad hoc committee, how many clan mothers were there from on the behalf of Ho-Chunk Nation?
We're not any clan members, but the Ho-Chunk Nation Church.
Nicole, you have to speak up, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but we didn't, I sent a letter, like everyone that's on the, so like the Ho-Chunk Nation has church, there's like, or something or two out there. I sent 2 letters that direction, that's how I handle that
So
side.
no one go in person to the Ho-Chunk Nation to clan mothers. They are not politicians. They are clan mothers. They have a remarkable wisdom. I used to hang out with them, but I think so. They are very important part of our community, and they should be invited in ad hoc committee.
So that would have been a great recommendation, right?
So, in my opinion, they should not be ignored.
They were not intentionally ignored. We were very clear who was going to get invited. If you wanted people outside of that invitation list, that would have been a fantastic suggestion to be made before the whole committee
2
was
months
put
ago when I
together.
talked about it.
I think that it's interesting because leading up to this meeting, I know I was like, okay, here we go. And I received over 50 emails in total, and if you sent one early enough in the week, you got my response. It was pretty, hey, so glad you decided to weigh in. Could you please provide some research and a little bit more about best practices that you guys, from both sides, everybody that kind of contacted me, can you give me some more context as to where you're getting, and how you're supporting your opinion? There are people in this room who know that for me personally, if I can't defend my opinion, I probably shouldn't have it. And so those responses from those were really quite interesting because there were a lot of attacks and a lot of other things happening. And so as far as the topic, it really was an indicator that we struggle here to have conversations about things that we can't all agree on. So I want to thank the people who contacted me and said, hey, this makes me nervous and I just like the option to opt out. So yeah, I just want to say to those who provided the research that I requested, thank you from both parties. And for those who were respectful enough to know that their opinion doesn't need to be delivered to everyone else, I appreciate that even more.
So may I deliver the admin recommendation, or how would you like to go?
Sure.
So after I'm not a part of that subcommittee, it is very clear how many staff members you can have. I heard from Dr. Sullivan after each one of the meetings. I did not have people reaching out to me about the topic, but I know that Dr. Sullivan did hear from a lot of people on the committee. I don't know about outside of the committee. The job of that committee was to make a recommendation to the board that the board could feel. I've heard almost every one of you talk about representing our community. And so I would need to do some more research. I disagree that we're opening ourselves up for a lawsuit. I don't believe that's the case because communities get to make those decisions is my belief. And I will certainly investigate more, but I don't believe that
I
to
think
be
it's
true.
well worth investigation, because
Okay.
if you cut that
Let me
material,
finish.
that's a major part of the law. And if it gets cut, we're not in compliance with the law.
I can
And we are
find,
definitely discriminating against our LGBTQ students.
so I could find many examples of school districts who have gone through this process and have cherry picked the topics that they are, their community has agreed are going to be a part of it. So I will do that due diligence, I promise. So that will happen. Because it is such a divided topic, I feel like our job is to let parents raise their children. We have talked so many times on so many different topics. How can we get parents to engage with their children's learning at a higher level? So we do have an opt-out, and I know that Dr. Sullivan works with our staff. We are very regimented about before we come to a human growth and development topic, we always send home the flyer so that parents know generally what topics are going to be discussed, and they have the right to remove their children. It doesn't happen often, but it certainly does happen. And to your point, we have people who are removed from other things with regularity, so I don't think it's that significant of a problem. What I'm suggesting is we have that general opt-out for all of human growth and development, and then we have I want my child to be in human growth and development, but I would like to opt them out of these topics that are in chapter 2. Give the parents the opportunity to drill down a little bit deeper, as opposed to, I don't want any part of this, I want this, I don't want this. And here's my why, not that you asked, but I'm gonna share it. We went through a lot of community discussion over our gender support plan a few years ago. I still stand behind that work. That work was intended to protect our most marginalized population. And I had 3 students reach out to me that had already been graduates of Black River Falls. And the words of one of them just really stood out to me. They said, I'm so proud of our community for putting this gender support plan in place. I am so pleased that the students that come after me are going to have those additional layers of support. And I bet it is hell to be a high school student in that building right now while the community is raging over this topic. And that is the part that I default to. The kids we are trying to protect are the ones who are going to take the most blows when they hear a community up in arms over topics that directly impact them. So if we give every parent the opportunity to opt out for just those topics, then those parents that feel strongly about staying in, stay in. Those that feel they don't want it, they opt themselves out. And I think we're probably going to end up with more students getting the rest of the curriculum because parents won't say no to the whole thing. They might say no just to that little carve out section. And then I would say we've done more good for those kids than if they had opted out of that entire curriculum. So the recommendation of the admin team is to move forward with the entirety of the curriculum, and those permission slips would be changed for 8th grade and 9th grade to include the topics and the opportunity for parents to opt out of chapter 2 specifics.
That sounds great.
7th grade.
Oh,
That was 7th grade.
that's what I thought, and then Dr. Sullivan and I talked just before this. I really thought so as well,
We
Patty.
split the 7th grade pieces and placed that unit with 8th grade, so they're older, more appropriate.
When did that happen?
That's just where I put in the proposal for
No, it
this.
was in today.
Is it not in, what did you print off? Did you print off the board packet or the one?
No, when we discussed it as a committee, there wasn't an option. I was not opposed to teaching this curriculum. I was opposed to teaching it at 11 and 12 years old. So if it's taught at a later time in life, that makes a difference.
Does make a difference.
But it wasn't in the committee discussion.
Right?
Yeah, there's nothing about this until 7th grade.
At least 7th grade that I'm concerned about.
So could you please clarify, Nicole, because when we talked about this just
Could you scroll
before.
up, right now, it's in the 8th grade piece.
And when did that happen there? So what I'm hearing is people that were at the committee felt they were discussing 7th grade. And what I'm feeling is perhaps you moved some of that to 8th grade to try to.
We didn't put it anywhere that night. We just took some notes
It
above,
says-
we took some notes above. Where does it say on there?
Right here
I
in
didn't
7.
bring that part with me, but in the materials that we got, the sequence was 1, 2,
But if you scroll up,
Correct,
One,
and the
three,
sequence,
four.
and
Here
then
it
we
says no
took,
consensus on chapter 2 for
Right.
7th as well.
so then we took the, you're correct. And then we took that and for the sake of this, because we had to be put it somewhere for the board. And we placed it in the 8th grade because that's where the teacher thought it was most appropriate when we went back and talked
so
about it.
that's a whole different deal. That was not what was
smallest
presented
since
to
you
the
were in
committee.
7th grade.
It wasn't 7th or 8th grade for the committee, just so.
In the curriculum, it sequentially is in 7th grade.
And so on this map, we always divided up between, I understand you and where you're coming from. It was and so that's it was a miscommunication in some way. It was always, we always took middle school, which was what we kept talking about, and divided it up because of the way that middle school, the way health is taught, is a shorter period of time, and some of those topics were more appropriate in 8th. So that's why on that document, 8th grade, that was a better placement for lesson 2, lesson 6, 7, 12, and 13. Is kind of what we're thinking is.
Aren't we doing two different recommendations? There's a committee recommendation and an admin recommendation, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and then we have to vote.
The committee doesn't really have a we didn't have any kind of consensus to recommend anything around unit 2.
That's what I got out of their committee.
So I went through lots of, like I tried at the end of the night to we went through different pieces and tried to see if like different things would work, but we didn't ever get to any kind of.
I'm not sure I still understand the units and the grade levels, I'm sorry, so can I just ask some questions for clarity?
Yes.
I was not there, I've not,
Yep.
okay? So, when you were reviewing the curriculum, did it come in units of 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade? Is that how it came? Or did
No.
it come, okay,
It comes in one, it comes in a
It's
unit,
one-
it's a book, and it says lesson 1 through 8.
so it's 6 through 8 and all of these individual pieces, and so the committee was taking the 6 through 8 listing and deciding what grade levels that listing should go in. Is that what you're suggesting?
It was presented to them, already divided up into the grade bands.
It came divided,
Okay, okay.
and that's the grades, and then, the teacher manuals were the same way.
Okay.
Because our the packets came middle school and high school packets. Unit 2
Sure.
was separate.
Got it.
I personally think that your suggestion is smart. It bypasses any potential legal problems because it uses the same opt-out procedure that's allowed for in section 5 of the law. So it just covers our legal bases. It allows people to not miss out on human growth and development if they are opposed to chapter 2. It still gives students who want to learn this terminology, and let me tell you as an anthropologist, there's like a chart here on page 87 on the difference between gender identity, biological sex, and sexual orientation. But I wish every person in the universe had to read because people on the left and the right screw this up constantly. And this is like 60, 70-year-old anthropological literature because we deal with cultures that have very strong opinions on what the two sexes are and have 5 genders. It happens all the time. And then you have people talking about sex and gender, and they're conflating the two. It's even in the law. It's miserable. So even the ability of students to be familiar with this terminology allows them to talk about this stuff without sounding uninformed. And that's going to matter so much in their lives because there's a lot of very controversial issues that this isn't, like transgender participation in sports, to name the first one on the top of everyone's head. If you don't even know the terms between sex and gender, you can't even begin to talk about an issue like that. So this is really basic stuff. It's not pornographic, it's not controversial, in my opinion, from the scientific perspective. But what I can tell you is that if you cut this, kids are just going to go to TikTok or YouTube, or frankly pornography, to get their answers on this stuff.
Some.
Lots of them. And so being able to present in a safe place, in a school, with teachers, an approved, scientifically approved curriculum is really important. And I hear you if you do not want your kids in this, I get it. I'm not dumb enough to see that half the town wants one thing and half the town wants the other. So I think Shelley's proposal is a really solid compromise that will allow students to still get human growth and development and only opt out selectively of that chapter if they wish, but it won't send a signal to all their LGBTQ kids that they're scum. And that matters.
Are you making a motion?
I make a motion to approve this proposal, including chapter 2, with a special opt-out that will be sent out to all parents when they're informed of the curriculum that will allow them to not only opt out of the entire program, but also to opt out of just the day where they talk about chapter 2, or just the hours when they talk about chapter 2.
For notes, can I say that you
What Shelley said.
approve the admin,
Yes.
okay, recommendation, okay.
I think that's as good as we're gonna get.
My clarification is that for 8th grade and 9th grade. 8th grade and 9th grade.
So that's the proposed grades, it's this section 2.
It's in those two,
We
yep,
talked to 8th and 9th.
yep,
And you'll pull section 2 from 7th grade, period?
correct. Not whole, but it was placed, it's the same.
I have a
There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Do we have further discussion on the motion?
So your motion based on the two aspects, one recommendation of Dr. Shelley and another is to aid the chapter number 2, right?
Shelley's recommendation was to basically expand the opt-out potential to allow parents to opt out of just chapter 2 instead of forcing kids to opt out of all of human growth and development if parents were opposed to this, and I think that's really smart.
I didn't understand. We have been teaching this subject. Why you want to opt out the whole program?
I don't. I think personally that it's really
It gives
important
the
for kids.
parents an opportunity to opt out of sections of, like, if they don't want their child learning about Unit 2, they can opt them out of that. So that is what Shelley is proposing.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, run the meeting, okay? I have a few questions I didn't get to ask before we had a motion, to Nicole. So the initial idea was to omit section 2,
That was the initial proposal. Yes, that was the
Yes.
initial proposal from.
and like, what was the reasoning behind that? Just didn't feel it was appropriate, or didn't want to?
Exactly how Shelley explained at the beginning, what we thought would, that whole that piece.
Which is that you were afraid of community pushback
We were afraid of the impact of community pushback
On the
on our
students themselves.
students that are most in need of support.
That's fair.
There's a significant difference between
Right.
afraid of ruffling the feathers of adults in the community and our most marginalized students feeling the pushback and the weight of all of that.
So before that, parents didn't have an option to opt out from chapter 2.
Correct.
Now it is the
They could opt out of the whole human growth and development part.
whole,
Yes. They could, yes. And they still can.
like a hygiene too.
If that's part of human growth and development, yes.
This is very confusing. We have been teaching from 14 years or 18 years about hygiene.
It's a new curriculum, if to cars.
But this chapter is, the community don't like chapter 2, so let's
Some,
get rid of
some.
it.
Some members,
Some don't like it, then we don't need it.
some members.
Or we
of the
can let
community-
parents decide
Some
for
people
their own
really do
child.
like it. Half the community really does.
But we just heard, we have ignored the Ho Chunk Nation, not a single member. We have invited into the ad hoc committee, and we are talking about the relationship with the Ho Chunk Nation. It doesn't make sense. So that whole ad hoc committee was not fully loaded with the appropriate people of minorities, just like Ho Chunk folks. So therefore, in my opinion, chapter 2 has to go away.
I believe the law does not state that we need to explicitly invite the tribes. Now, they were
And-
invited as members of our
yes.
community,
Yes.
but it's not like a consultation law under section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act that requires tribal consultation. Members of the Ho Chunk Nation were welcome to participate in the ad hoc committee if they wanted to. We didn't need to extend a specific invitation.
But there is also the fact that there are a lot of parents, we already have enrollment out, a large number. And I think we need to be aware that this could push more families out of the district regardless of opting out. So that is something I want us to think about as well, because it has been stated in emails that we received from parents. We should be worried more about the enrollment and if how many kids or families will be enrolled out. So I'm just gonna say that, but it's not just a law, because I remember discussing IEPs a couple months back and saying, hearing how many do we have as complaints? 3. Well, that's not a big deal. So what is the percentage? Less than 1, we heard at our last meeting, February 3rd, 1%. of the population, we figure, is what we sort of
It was a small
discussed.
number.
Very small number. And IEPs, a legal document, which you are bringing up the law tonight, which you like to use a lot when it's for your favor. And a legal IEP, you don't want to hear anymore about when they're not being followed. We can't pick and choose the law. What is the law is the law. And so IEPs, legal document, when a child's IEP is not followed, we can be sued, which we do have some in the district already. And I will go there later. But we need to be appropriate about whatever law we're going to follow. And IEPs are a law that those kids, if they're not being followed, parents can turn around and sue the district. So has it been done? Yep. So just a little tidbit there. When you bring the law,
I wanted to know
We need
when
to
all
follow
laws are being
all the
broken.
laws.
Like if there's a law.
that's
being
right,
broken-
when the laws, but I heard at the last meeting in October, when we discussed IEPs, and you said there's only 3 complaints. Out of how many? We don't need to discuss it anymore. And I said, 1 IEP is too many, 1.
No.
And I was brushed off.
Same with
First of all, this is a real red herring, but second of all, we did follow the law on that. We took the process all the way through DPI, and the reason I said this wasn't an issue is because we had followed the law to the letter. We had all the
There
documentation
is
showing
still
we had
a
followed the law
reason
to
for
the
the
letter.
board to be aware. And we should be
Aware of what?
discussing of IEPs not being followed.
This is not a discussion about IEPs, it's a
That's
discussion
right,
about human growth and development.
because it affects what you see different. I see something different, you see something different, Alex.
Because of IEPs,
No, I'm talking about following the law.
we have to follow the law. It's the law.
Well,
And it does not say that you have to provide that education. It does not say
It
it.
actually does.
It-
It says right here, present information about avoiding stereotyping and bullying, including how to refrain from making inappropriate remarks, avoiding engaging in inappropriate physical or sexual behaviors, and how to recognize, rebuff, and report any unwanted or inappropriate remarks of physical sexual behaviors. An instructional program under this section shall use instructional methods, that's a shall, and materials consistent with 118.13 to not discriminate against a pupil based on the pupil's race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or ethnic and cultural background. And as I discussed earlier, we don't even know the difference between gender and sexual orientation
And that
unless you're in
applies-
chapter 2.
That
So
applies,
we're not
any
even
of
equipped
those
to
can
deal with
apply
these
to
issues.
anything. Any child can be discriminated while in school. Doesn't have to say LGBTQ. No, there are children being discriminated throughout school. They're made fun of.
So
There are a lot of kids.
is your argument we need to discriminate against our kids?
No.
No,
Okay, then I don't understand what you're arguing.
the way I interpret this is if we do it or don't, it's not against the law. Okay?
If we do it, it's not against the law. If we don't, it might be against the law.
No, Shelley says no. You say we cannot be persecuted?
It's
just
not
did
a
it.
law thing.
Maybe it's a law thing.
To be honest, there are, what other part of our curriculum are spelled out in state statute who must be able to come to the table? It is different than all of our other curriculum content, so we can't pretend like that doesn't matter, right? There's no other area of our curriculum that says you must invite this, so it is different and should be treated as such. It definitely is different. I'm simply saying if the committee couldn't come to consensus, why wouldn't we empower the parents?
And I also think it's worth noting that nobody, not Jeanette, nor me, nor Iftikhar, nor Caitlin, nor Nick, nobody here is going to change their mind tonight. We can keep all of you here all night. It's not going to change anyone's mind. So we do have a motion on the table. We should vote on it. Because otherwise we'll be here till midnight and it's not going to help anybody.
I like what Shelley said about empowering the parents. You know, that is the thing that has been just brought up over and over and over again is parents' choice, parents' choice, parents' choice. Give parents the choice. They can opt their kids in, they can opt their kids out. Leave it to the parents. There's no consensus in the community. There's no consensus here. Leave it to the parents.
I'd like to add something, and I'm sorry I'm not supposed to do this, but I think I have a minute left on my time.
Right.
I was very proud of the committee because we came to consensus on so many other things, and I'd like to focus on that. I would also like to talk about the vote, because the majority of the parents that were there, and if you look in the law, the parents, any number of parents could come to this meeting. We were missing 3 of them at the second meeting where we discussed and voted on this. But the majority of the parents were opposed to including chapter 2 in the 7th grade. I want to clarify, because I agree with you, Thomas, that this is very important material to be taught. I think it's the age that it's taught that's the concern.
Nicole, what do you feel the appropriate age is?
I cannot even begin to be an expert. I have said that from the beginning. I was here to facilitate a process. I feel like it's more I feel like 8th graders are more able to take on more topics than a 7th grader. I do feel like that's true. I feel like giving choice and voice, that's always a positive thing to do, but that's all I can say.
What did the students on the committee think?
The student, is that okay, Dr. Carter?
Yeah, you go ahead.
The students on the committee felt like it was important to know what these words meant, instead of seeing it like on TikTok and things like that. Our students also, I just want to plug in, were really articulate and handled themselves extremely well for hours in that meeting. And they offered a lot. And yeah, it gave us information like maybe we need to think about something beyond 9th grade. Like they had a lot of really salient points about what's important for kids, which is, it's so much different from them, for them, than it is like, I've been out of high school a long time.
Yes, sir, sure.
Yeah, all of us, including me, I received many emails. One of the emails consists of the research of Stanford University of Medicine. They researched that a person, once he or she becomes 25 years of age, are able to do decisions according to their brain. So that was a shocker, and that is one of the prestigious schools in our country, United States of America. So I like that. And there is another email from the doctor saying that this chapter should not be aided, and according to his 40 years of practice of medicine, stop confusing the students, start teaching them mathematics and other subjects. So I would say that this chapter has to go. And they have the disagreement in consensus. It says their yellow pages. That is what I received from my constituent.
Sure. Okay. Any other comments? I kind of now feel that there's probably like a challenge here, and we're not going to please anybody. I'm really not really in favor of lesson 2 being taught, especially in middle school. I feel the kids are too young to have that much thrown at them. They're, you only can take in so much, and you're still figuring out yourself. And middle school kids are really confused, even without different, like more than 2 options and stuff. So I'd like to amend the motion to have it be like 9th grade and up for lesson 2.
I second it.
That is not Robert's rules, just to be clear. The person who made the motion would have to agree on the amending. You can't amend somebody else's motion. Just to be the parliamentarian, I guess. You would have to get the person who made the motion would have to agree to amend it. If the person who made the motion does not agree to amend it, then you would have to take a vote and see if it passes, and if it does not pass, then the table would be open for someone else to make a motion. And if there's any FFA members out there who remember parliamentary procedure better, I'm wide open, but I know you can't change somebody else's motion.
It's a long time.
I I know one person can't change somebody else's motion, I'm very confident on that.
Would that be a, like, if, let's say Alex did change his motion to do
Would you
that
be
to
willing to
ninth
support
grade,
this? If we changed it?
would that be possible, like,
So essentially, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, what you are suggesting is all of the chapter 2 stays out of middle school grades and chapter 2 remains in the ninth grade. Is that what you are suggesting? And there would be the parent opt-out specifically for chapter 2.
That's what I think would be a better fit, because I really don't think middle school is a good fit for the lesson 2.
So we're gonna deadlock and then deadlock again and deadlock again. That's
Until
what,
you have a 7th board member.
until we have a 7th board member, which means everybody gets to come back next time. I will amend my motion so that section 2 is only included in ninth grade, and that there is an opt-out specifically to section 2 for parents who want it. And I think that's about as good of a compromise as we're gonna hope.
Yeah, the opt-out also in ninth grade. right?
Yeah, the opt-out is there won't be anything to opt out of because there'll be no chapter 2 in 7th and 8th grade. You just would opt out of the entire curriculum as per normal. In ninth grade, you can opt out of the entire curriculum, or you can opt out of just section 2. And I amend my motion to reflect that.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Great, the motion is second. Any further debate? All right, proceed to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I
3. All opposed, signify by saying no.
No.
No. Please vote.
What, did you vote no, so it's 5-1?
Did you vote no?
Iftar, I'm asking you, which way did you vote, in favor or against?
I didn't understand it's going so fast.
So you need to cast a ballot.
Yeah.
I have 3-3.
So wait, I just amended the
Wait.
motion because you said you supported it if I amended it and you voted against it anyway? Oh, jeez Louise.
You remember
Let's
these-
start
What's
this
the
over.
vote?
Can we start with the, I'm sorry, that was
That's
very
so confusing.
confusing.
Okay.
So can I restate the motion as you have it written down, Marty, okay?
Yes.
The motion is that chapter 2 would be completely removed from middle school grades. Chapter 2 would stay in ninth grade.
Yep.
Parents would get the general opt-out for human growth and development, and there would be a separate section to opt out of the content in chapter 2.
Yes.
That has been motioned and seconded, and I can't call for it, but any of you could call for a voice vote so we know exactly how everyone is voting.
I call for a voice vote so we know exactly how it is
Thank
voted.
you.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed,
What's your vote, Nick?
so I'll vote for it.
Hmm?
Yay.
Okay.
So 6-0.
6 for it.
6
Zero
for,
opposed.
0 opposed.
I'm so glad we went through that a second time, because that was wild.
It's been a very confusing
For sure.
situation.
Can I just clarify one point then? On the middle school, right there, you see where it says edit? That will come out, that pre and post test will be edited.
Correct, that'll come out. There'll be no chapter 2
Yeah.
until ninth grade now.
Until ninth grade, high school.
High school.
High school will not be edited.
And their parents have a still choice in high school, right?
What?
Should we edit the pre and post test for the high school?
I need more words, I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The pre and post test has questions, so if you are opting out,
Yes,
there's gonna
then the
be.
teacher's gonna have to change the,
It's
yep,
just gonna be edited.
absolutely. If they're not exposed to the content, they can't be tested on the content.
Agreed.
I really want to thank everybody who's here listening for bearing with us on this. Like I said at the beginning, this is going to be pretty brutal. And I think for the most part, everybody did pretty well here.
And if I could just add one piece to that, people are here because they feel very, very, very strongly on one side or the other. And if I could beg of one thing, it would be to stop using the fear-mongering language. When you talk about open and rolling out, I saw what some sources posted on Facebook about what our topic for discussion was, and we were gonna make all kids do it, and it was gonna be 6-year-olds. If we could always speak from fact, it would be a whole different conversation in our community, as opposed to using fear-mongering words to stir up everybody's emotional response, it's exhausting for those that are trying to take a vote and make a rational decision when they're hearing nothing but everybody's heat and anger and fear and concern and passion. If we could just speak from fact. We want our kids to be safe and we want our parents to be the drivers of what they are exposed to when it comes to things that are even questionable. So if I could beg one thing, can we speak from facts? Parents still have all the choices. The school district is doing nothing to students without parents asking us to educate their children on that topic. If we could summarize all of this in that box, I would go home feeling like this room absolutely accomplished climbing a mountain tonight.
And it did not, my concern did not come from any Facebook post.
All good.
It came from emails
Yeah,
that were sent.
Absolutely, I'm not questioning that.
I just want you to be aware
Sure.
of that.
Yep.
So I feel those parents have a voice and we need to hear that as well. It's not, in my opinion, called fear-mongering. It's being smart and saying, look, if parents are threatening to take their kids out and we are already down in enrollment, we need to be aware of it because we have a referendum coming that we want to go and discuss tonight about and doing in November. And if our enrollment keeps going down, then why do we need more money? I mean,
I
you
won't
know,
compromise my values to save people staying or open enrolling out. So that is not an argument that I feel great about. People
but I'm
leave for a
just
lot of
saying,
reasons.
There are a lot of people,
Yes.
Shelley, you have to have that common sense
Yeah.
that this is could happen. And as a board, we should be concerned about that, as why are our numbers going down?
I'd also point out that one of the things they mentioned in chapter 2 is how far attendance declines when LGBTQ students don't get this sort of support. And we're worried about attendance also. This is a complicated, multivariate issue, and I think we all did well.
There was only one motion. There wasn't a second
And I
motion out
appreciate
there.
you working on
I'm
it.
just
there was-
thinking about it.
yeah.
There's a
So there was a motion.
We amended it. We submitted on amending it.
No. So, I'm sorry, he's just asking something about Robert's rules, and so we're just talking this through. I do not mean to belabor
wanna
this
make sure
point.
we're doing it
So
right.
what I believe happened, there was a motion on the table.
Yep.
It was, the
Amended.
table was full, right? That was the motion on there. You asked that motion to be amended, so the person who made the motion agreed to amend it. That took the place of that first motion. So the new motion was the only one on the table. So when you voted in support of the amended motion, not on that first motion. So I think what you did was accurate. That first motion was gone as soon as they amended it. It's not like it's living, you changed it. That first motion was changed.
You have to vote on the amendment, to amend it, and then you have to vote on the amendment.
Only one person gets to decide if he's amending his motion. It was his motion, he made it, it was attached to Alex's name. Alex gets to decide if he's gonna amend his motion or not, is what I believe.
Yeah,
Well, I don't agree with that, which means it's a real compromise. That's how compromises work, right?
Unless somebody else feels differently about Robert's rules, but
That is correct.
the person who
according to
made the
Robert's
motion
rules.
agreed to amend it, that became the only motion on the table then.
I might have that book.
It is correct by
Thank you,
Robert's rules.
thank you.
All my 4-H education. there.
FCCLA, 4-H, FFA, all those parliamentary procedure.
right, moving on.
Moving on then.
Finance.
Alright, moving on to 9.1 monthly expenditures.
All right, tuck in some numbers. So this was in your board packets. It's the same type of graphing that I've shown the last couple of months. And it just shows our percentage of the revised budget that was created and where our expenditures are through January. If you look close, you can see we're trending just above the last 2 fiscal years. The main reason why, and I'll show you, I guess probably on the next page, the part that is probably the reason why is our benefits budget is kind of getting blown through a little bit. So there's a couple reasons for that. We have more employees that are electing our benefits package. mainly turning 26 years old, they can no longer be on their parents' insurance. And then another reason why is loss of other insurance benefits and then picking up our offering for insurance. So that's one of the reasons why I believe that we're trending just a little bit higher than we have been in previous years.
Could I just offer the other piece about our, the structure of our benefits? This year we moved to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and while the plan structure saved us money in premiums for sure from our previous Security Health, medications used to be a copay on the side prior to, and not coming off of the deductible. Now the whole cost of it comes off the deductible, so we have more people are reaching their max much faster through 1 month of medications, as opposed to a couple times going in for services to reach that maximum. So that deductible is being met much faster with the medications.
Are staff happy with new health insurance?
I think that depends who the users are. I think changing is hard, right? People already don't understand the whole explanation of benefits. The number of times I hear people come into Marty and they're like, do I have to pay this? And it says, this is not a bill, explanation of benefits, but people just don't take the time to understand all of it. So I wouldn't have a lot of thoughts on that.
So I thought it would be beneficial. I don't want to take up a ton of your time, but I always show this by object, and there's a little bit of a description about what they are, but they're not super detailed. So I just wanted to give you some explanation about what some of these are. So the object 100 and 200 salaries and benefits, those are pretty self-explanatory. But 300 is purchase services. That is things like utilities, electric, vehicle fuel, CISA purchases, trash services, porta potty rentals, vouchers, and open enrollment. That all falls under 300 purchase services. 400 is non-capital objects. The biggest expenses in there, general supplies. So you think scissors for art class, that's a general supply, but it's also couplings for whatever you use couplings for. So,
good example.
Technology hardware, and then tables, chairs, cubbies, things like that. 500 is capital objects. The big purchase in here is the bus purchase that's currently in our budget each year. The 600s is debt retirement. These are leases. We try not to lease because then you have to pay money on the interest. Insurance and judgments is 700s. That's our liability, property, and workers' compensation insurance. 800s is transfers. That's special education transfers. We don't transfer it all at once. We do it monthly. But that's our transfers from Fund 10 to Fund 27. And 900s says other objects. These are a lot of dues and fees. Think of like associations that our principals and teachers belong to, as well as like sporting events, paying to be in that middle school wrestling. So that falls under that.
Any questions for Brandon?
Much appreciated, Brandon,
Thank
for
you,
your
Brandon.
All right.
willingness.
So we also have, I think we need
The expenditures
Yeah.
that needs to
the
be.
expenditure to do, thank you.
Make a motion to approve the expenditures for January.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is second. All in
Who
favor?
seconded?
Caitlin.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No one opposed.
Motion passes.
All right, it's that time of year where we gotta start having preliminary budget discussions, and this is our budget development model that we've used since I've been with the district, so 7 years now, and I just kind of picked up where Jill left off. First thing, it's already starred here, but I'm gonna say it too. Please know that these numbers are based on estimates and subject to change, but we need a starting point to kind of get us ready for the upcoming school year. So how we kind of line this up is we start with the revenue limit, which is where school districts are capped on how much money that they can spend in their Fund 10, basically. And so we start with what we have for this year, 25-26, and what we're estimating for 26-27. Subtract one from the other to figure out any new revenue that we would have. This new revenue is generated from new per pupil spending, is kind of where that comes from. And it's based off of our estimated amount of FTEs or full-time equivalent students that are going to be living within the district. After that, we have to make any other adjustments, whether it's in the negative or in the positive, Sage and AGR's first one listed here, it shows a negative of about 63,000. That is due to decrease in enrollment, so less students, less voucher aid for those areas. Open enrollments, again, estimates, but 100,000, that is due to 900 per student increase according to the biennium budget from this year to next year. Fund 39 debt service, this one is something that is new-ish, but it hasn't been in our revenue limit yet. Anything in Fund 39 is for non-referendum debt that has to live inside of the revenue limit. And so we want to get it there so that it's always there going forward. We don't have to account for it in other places. 3% increase in special education state aid, estimated at 40%. So if you have followed along a little bit, you know that this year, according to the biennium budget, was supposed to be a 42% reimbursement rate, and next year a 45% reimbursement rate. Knowing that that might not come to fruition, we budgeted for about 39%, and it's coming back at 35%. So we're falling short there. And
Just to be clear, the biennium budget is what told us 42 and 45. So we built our budget around what the biennium budget said, and now they are no longer honoring that.
and so for next year, we're not gonna budget at 45 if we know that we're not getting 42 with this year. So there's an increase there, but not what it necessarily should be.
I'm sorry, Brandon.
Yep.
Would you repeat that for me? That you're gonna go do it at what, 40%?
Yep, we're gonna estimate 40% reimbursement rate, which gives us an increase of around 80,000, again, an estimate for now. Whereas if it was 45% and we estimated at that, it would be much more than that.
Right.
I don't know if anyone has heard, but the legislature is still in session for maybe 4 more days. And there's a budget repair bill that is being hotly debated, that some of the surplus that would make the special education promise this year, make it whole. They're talking about making it some sufficient that we would actually get 42% this year, and then would use some of that for the 45 for next year. That would be a game changer for us, right? Because we balanced our budget at 42, and now we're hearing it's coming in at 35, so we will likely be in a deficit by the end of the year. So if you're into advocacy, this week would be a great one to talk to our elected officials about following through on their commitment that they made. And the other part of the budget repair bill is property tax relief, which we all would be very, very, very excited about. I shouldn't assume that. I would be very excited.
And then there's a decrease in transportation aid due to no summer school transition days in our calendar for next year. That brings us to the proposal items listed below, 1A, 1B, and 2. We have 3 items listed here for your viewing, but tonight we're only going to be asking on proposal item number 2, and I'll show you a little bit more in section 9.3 about what that's going to look like. 1A, however, is a 2% salary increase, which includes WRS and Social Security. We budget for $160,000 for each percent increase, and so a 2% increase amounts to $320,000 in cost of living increases. 1B is an 8% health insurance increase. We have a cap with Anthem at 8.9%. We're guesstimating at 8%, and hopefully we're on the higher side there, but we have to budget higher and hope for better. We don't know the rate that's coming back yet. We should hopefully get a better idea by next month, and that'll help determine both 1A and 1B, which is why we're not asking for action on them tonight. And then 2 is an increase in building allocation budgets. So each building gets a budget that they have at their disposal to use throughout the school year. Those budgets are set by us, and they're based off of the FTE full-time equivalent student population at each building. And again, I'll show you this in 9.3, but I just wanted to give you some notes and thoughts that our admin team will be working through coming up as far as budget adds and reductions before we go on to that 9.3. A couple of things that are likely to come up as far as proposals. Summer school budget increase. We have consistently gone over our budget in summer school spending, stemming way back to before COVID, but during the COVID years, we had a lot of federal funding, ESSER funding, that helped make up the difference for a lot of that summer school spending. But that no longer exists, and so we're gonna continue going over unless we do something about it and add more money to that budget. We're hoping to do a little bit of an increase in Adaptive Sports League coach salaries. The program started out really small. It was funded by gifts and grants. It has since gotten much larger, and we feel that it's fair to pay them more in line with what we pay other school sports for seasons of the year. And then a couple of increase to some of our budget incentives for some of those fixed costs. Thinking about transportation, you saw Christy here last month talking about the price of a bus and how it's gone up and up and up. If we don't get ahead of it, we're always gonna fall behind. So some of those fixed costs like transportation, trash service, utilities, inspections, the cost of porta potty rentals for cross-country meets and football and all the outdoor activities it's gone up and up and up at a faster rate than we're able to accommodate. So we need to find a way to get it into our budget so that we're getting ahead of it. Many of the same increases that you see in your home budget in terms of fixed costs, we're seeing them on the school side as well, and we're falling behind and just need to get caught up. So those are probably some of the things that you'll see coming up as far as budget reductions and adds. So that brings us to 9.3, which is our building allocations. Last year we did a 5% increase from what they were at the 4th Street level all the way to high school. That increase, we're not recommending a further increase, rather keep the same amounts. And if you apply those same amounts to the estimated enrollment in each building, you come up with the budget allocation this year in this column compared to this column over here. And I see that I have a typo in here, and it says that the change is $3,017, whereas on this sheet it says $1,229. So that's my mistake, but the actual amount would be $3,017.
Thanks, Brendan.
So item 2 should actually be 3017?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's what we're asking for approval on tonight.
So increase is $3,017, right?
Number 2 on the other sheet, so once the board approves the building budget allocations, then each of the principals can go to their staffs and they can start building their classroom budget. So that piece is much appreciated to be done first so that they can build their building budgets around it.
Real quick question, if you go back to the next slide, where we actually have a number of buildings with a slightly decreased budget, is that just basically things stayed the same, you didn't need to build anything else, or?
They're relatively close. Our principals are very good at budgeting. High school has a rather significant one, whereas middle school is going up. And the reason why is we have 132 kids in 5th grade going to 6th grade, and only 110 kids leaving middle school. So that's why they're increasing. On the other half of things, 12th grade is losing students and not getting as many into 9th grade. So Kim will handle it well.
I always do.
We just need a motion,
Yeah, I'll move to approve the 3 building budget allocation for 26-27.
I'll second that.
All in favor of the building budget allocation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
If before we jump off budget, I could just explain one thing that Brandon and I were talking to our financial investors financial advisors, last week. So those that have been on the board for a while, you perhaps remember the word defeasance strategy that we've been using for years, meaning we've been trying to control our levy a little bit as opposed to letting it drop and then come up, drop and then come up. It has dropped definitely year after year after year, but we have used the debt payments from our most recent referendum, the 2 facility referendums, to manage that instead of letting it drop all the way down the year that our assessed values will would make that happen, then the next year would spike back up. It's been a slow gradual. So that means that we have levied for these additional funds to pay off debt. And we have made some larger debt payments, which we've saved over $2.5 million on interest payments because we keep cutting off that end of the debt. They reminded us, and they talked to Jill about it, Jill and I about it last spring, and then reminded us this year. So when you spend money as a school district, you get aided on what you spend, and they decide exactly, right, our revenue limit, they tell us exactly how much we can spend, and that revenue limit is made up of state aid and property tax. And it is not getting any higher than this, but it could be this much property tax and this much state aid, but it's not getting any higher than this, right? So this year, when we got the new spending authority for the 325 and no additional state aid, that meant property taxes had a much more significant increase this year in addition to the assessed value. So what they talked about is, instead of that money that we've been defeasing to pay off debt, if we make a large payment off that debt this spring, because that money sits, we cannot spend it on anything other than repaying debt, just to be really clear. We can't defease it, say we're gonna buy a new bus, that is illegal. You say it's for your referendum, you spend it on your referendum debt, period. If we make a large payment to the state, it looks like we spent more money this year than we get more aid next year. And they're telling us that even though there is more spending authority next year for an additional 325, that if we spend some of that defeased dollars, that we would increase the state's share of that new money that we get to spend, as opposed to it all following on the property tax. So they basically said, stop letting that money sit there, go spend it, and it will help you in the long term for interest payments, and it will increase the state's portion of your revenue limit more so for next fall.
Now, the only question is, that makes sense, but if we spend more of it this year, that will help next year, especially if there's a referendum.
So that's,
But the year after that, will it spike for everybody?
so that's what he's talked about. We don't wanna squash it entirely, right? We wanna keep, the board has talked about it for years, that defeasance is kind of a strategy to control the mill rate and not let it spike all over. Even though we have control over so few of the factors that create that mill rate, it certainly doesn't breed a lot of trust when people see it zigzagging all over the place, right? If you're a school district without debt, you don't have any ability to try to regulate it. When you have debt, you can use that strategy to try to regulate it. Again, it's been on the steady decline, so it has gone down. What they are saying is that if we were to spend some of that defeasance this year, it would increase our state aid for next year. We wouldn't spend down all of it, we would keep some money in there. Let's say we don't pass a referendum, maybe the community says no and we don't even ask, we could use some of that defeasance to make the debt payment. So we pay about 1.2 million each year in that facility debt. We could use some of that defeasance to offset some of those costs annually so that we don't need 1.2 in our budget each year. Do you understand what I'm saying? That we could use it to make our annual payments as opposed to making a larger payment in order to increase the state's share of our revenue limit. So there's all kinds of financial strategies around it. We're having lots of conversations as to what is going to, it's never about how can we make it through this year, but how can we set ourselves up for most flexibility and most opportunity moving forward.
Can I just say very publicly, I know Shelley sometimes gets a lot of flack, but this is what Shelley is very good at. And by having a district administrator who has the depth of knowledge and connections to do this sort of thing, we can really save ourselves a lot of money. It's really valuable.
All right,
Good job.
thank you.
All right, then, moving on to 10.1, meeting minutes from the January meeting. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll move to pass the January minutes, approve them, I mean.
I second it.
Okay. Go with Iftikhar as a second. All in favor of passage of minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. District Administrator's Report?
Just a few things really quickly. If you happen to catch the radio spotlight last week, there are just a ton of little pockets of kids that are doing some pretty fantastic things that have been participating in some external competitions lately. And Mrs. Penza shared with you the high school newsletter. I shared a lot of those pieces in the radio spotlight, whether it's our yearbook being recognized nationally for the outstanding work that they do, the individual student that won an award for her layout on regalia, the other art student who designed the state Youth Art Month flag that is going to be displayed in every school district across the state for Youth Art Month. And Mr. Keller back there, who's running our technology, shared he is a facilitator of our middle school VEX Robotics Club, and he's incredibly proud, not just as the father of one of the VEX Robotics members, but also as the advisor of the club. And so he just wanted to share that both teams had secured prestigious judging awards, and they're both going to represent us in the state competition March 8th in Green Bay. And I just wanted to read you one of the notes about it, because it talks a lot more to what the kids are learning about the process of robotics, far more than it talks about the actual robots that they made. So the first one was called the Innovate Award, and it said it's presented to a team that demonstrates an effective and well-documented design process for a novel aspect of their robot design or gameplay strategy. To win this award, the team had to identify a specific unique engineering element and show the judges how they developed that idea from a concept into a working solution on the field. To me, that feels like, did you show your work, right? How many times were kids asked, did you show your work? And the judges recognize those kids for showing their work. The next one is kind of along those same lines, and it is Design Award, and it is the judges evaluate the team's engineering notebook, which serves as their professional record of their design journey, and then they conduct an interview with the students to see how well they understood their engineering choices. And the judge said the Design Award is the foundation for excellence. It shows that the students aren't just building a robot, but they are truly learning the professional habits of an engineer. And so I just thought that was pretty fantastic. And again, that's one example. The high school musical is coming up first weekend in March, and boy, they are pretty excited. Frozen is the chosen musical this year, and there's just a lot of excitement around it. Mr. Fasado was doing a fantastic job getting the kids all geared up and ready to go. So there's just a lot of kids doing really unique niche things, like they are following their specific areas of interest and are really excelling. Of course, there's lots of athletic celebrations too as we come to a close. The one that I always think of is the Cranberry Cup. Our boys hockey team won again on Saturday night. All kinds of great things happening, and I just appreciate when the principals can find those small groups of students who feel so strongly about something that they really dedicate a lot of extra time to, and then they excel at it and get to represent us elsewhere. So it's just exciting stuff. That's all I have.
Just curious, how many kids are in the VEX program?
Is Patrick back there?
He's
He's in the other room.
Okay.
There are 2 teams of 3 or 4 on each team. Dan? 3 on a team. 3 kids on a team, and there's 2 teams in it.
Yeah, we'd have to judge. Oh my gosh.
I can hear Patrick.
I know, he says I'm coming.
We
Mr.
didn't
Chance,
get to judge the Black River teams, we recused ourselves, and everybody was judged based on an ID number, so I didn't know who had won. So those were the judges from Westby and some of the other towns that rated our teams as the best. And so it's not our fault, but it was really nice when they announced the awards, like, hey, the Black River teams, because we didn't know. But those engineering notebooks were really cool, because that's how you show that your cool robot didn't just come from YouTube. That's how you show that you actually developed it yourself. So
Show your work.
it was really cool.
And the whole event was well done. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing it for our kids. It was incredible to watch just all the kids come together.
And the MC specifically said that this was the best first event that they'd ever been to for a school running an event.
We have 16 students, 4 8th graders, which I'm gonna miss one of them deeply. And then the rest is just 6th and 7th graders. So it's nice to see them come from I don't know what I'm doing to where they're at today. So hopefully I continue to build this program more and more. We've had 6 awards this year. Up till now, we only had like 7 for the program since 2020.
Thank you, Patrick.
So You're welcome. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Sorry I put you on the spot.
Oh, my daughter's all ripped off, she can't do it till middle school.
I
You have to have something to look forward to.
So WASB, another workshops, you guys kind of state convention.
Yeah,
How was that?
I thought it was fabulous.
yeah, it was
Great.
wonderful.
It was very interesting. I got to be the delegate for our district for the legislative. I can't remember what the name.
Delegate Assembly.
The
Delegate
delegate
Assembly.
assembly, which was a really interesting experience. The process was very interesting to watch, and just they're very, very, very professional and very no nonsense. It was very interesting to watch how they run their meetings. What do you call it? Like the workshops were all very interesting and really well done. It was interesting to see districts that have done really well in specific areas talking about what they did and ideas on implementation in the community. I thought it was just really helpful to talk also with other school board members from other parts of the state, and it was a very educational opportunity. I would recommend that everyone from the school board go next year.
I did grab books. So one of the keynote speakers had kind of a what he called his library, and so there was books for sale, and there's books that he had kind of used along his life journey to learn about education and leadership. So we ended up picking up a handful, and I've gone through them. And I brought them because anybody on the school board who wants to go through them and read them, please feel free to take them and delve in and have fun and see if you take anything away. I know I did, but they're free for whomever would
Did you
like.
read them all already?
Yeah, most of them.
That one's
there's one
called
I-
coherence, we clearly all need some more reading of that one.
Look.
We've talked before about we've talked about bigger carrots or bigger sticks. Here's better than carrots or sticks.
Yeah, my only complaint about the conference was that it happened in January in Milwaukee, and it was like minus 25 degrees the whole time. But other than
Probably
that,
when
it
things
was,
are cheaper. Everyone knows.
it was
Wasn't it inside?
Other than that, it was delightful.
Not your hotel. You had
No.
to get there.
No,
And they have these little fake doormen.
Like plastic,
they did have
like
fake. It was
cardboard.
very.
They look like those wax figures.
It was very creepy.
It was very creepy.
Any other WSB other workshop? Things?
I went to a couple of the seminars or clinics or workshops about the referendum, and I learned some really cool stuff about how to kind of speak school to like just the general public. And I got the number for a PR woman who focuses on referendum PR. So she might be a really interesting person to kind of connect with at some point in this next little adventure.
Okay. Moving on to 10.4, school board connection opportunities.
I actually want to mention the ad hoc committee again. I think that counts as a school board connection opportunity. I think it's better than most of the ones we get. To get that many people from the public to drag themselves out 2 different days and interact with everybody else is a big deal. I wish we could do that for every decision we ever make, but people would get that. But it's good and valuable input, and I appreciate it.
On Thursday, we have another committee meeting coming up that we're gonna try and do some action around trying to leverage some of those funds that we were promised, things like that. It's just a group that's coming together to kind of talk about how we can impact school on a state level and start to be kind of a voice for kids and education in the wider community as well. So Thursday night, come join us.
Conference room, 5:30.
Yep.
Anything else? Future agenda items?
Where are we at with the
I've talked to Justin. That is a pricey venture, so it's on hold, and I would ask everyone to use their outside voice for a while. Because
In our capital maintenance budget talked a little bit about updating our projector, and so we can try and work it has to do, we're gonna have to do something with the sound system anyways, and so we'll see what we can figure out with that.
Okay.
Anything else? Alright, we will move to adjournment then.
Second.
That's fast. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.
I didn't invite
Feel like
any,
a functional school.
I didn't invite any outside guests because there was no school today, so there
Ah,
was no
that's-
students.
that
no
always takes a
teachers.
lot of-
Yes,
that
so
I think-
there's
I
that.
thought you were so.
Social studies is on the course